Welcome back to The Neologist, the Untold story, episode 2. Before I really can dive into all the good stuff I want to get to, I do want to continue with kind of the backstory of the band. In episode 1, obviously talked about, how Devin and I came to form The Neologist with our time at Sever, kind of kicking that off. In this episode, I'm going to talk about myself, which I never in a million years thought I would just be sitting here talking about myself and having anyone listen or care. But that's what I'm going to do. To start that, really, that musical journey, I look back into 1996. At this point, I was in 6th grade, living out in California in a place called 29 Palms, out in the middle of the desert. And I remember I used to go to my older brother, who was 4 years older than me. I went to his room and I played Doom all the time. I can't even remember what Doom because I played them all because they were just the greatest games back then. But I was playing Doom one day and he was laying on his bed just reading or something, and he had music playing in the background, and I wasn't thinking too much of it. I was too busy killing imps and wreaking havoc on the digital world. But I remember after kind of playing a little bit, this song came on. I remember there was like a break in the music, and then the song came on, and the intro instantly captured my attention. I think I was like kind of focusing on it, but I was still killing imps. I couldn't stop, saving the world. But I think I must have died or something like that, and I was still so like attracted to whatever was happening in the background that I eventually turned around while the song was still playing and said, "Who is this?" And that band would happen to be Metallica, and the song would be "Until It Sleeps." And from that moment on, man, I was just obsessed with Metallica. I was listening to everything I could, and I was just soaking it up. I was so obsessed, such that Metallica really was the only band that I listened to for at least 2 years. And when I say they're the only band I listened to, I mean literally nothing got played on my stereo or in my headset other than Metallica. I didn't even own anything other than Metallica. I used to sit down and just watch MTV back when they played music videos in case Metallica came on. So I was very obsessed. But after a while, I listened to, that brother, my 4-year older brother, had the Black Album and Load, and maybe Ride the Lightning, but I think it was just Load and the Black Album. So after I just basically destroyed those albums, listened to them so much, I needed more, and I knew that there was other ones out there. And there was this, so I had my other older brother who was 6 years older than me. Now that one I didn't quite hang out with, and he was on the other side of the spectrum. So my 4-year older brother, I hung out with him all the time. We used to go, walking out and just doing things together. The other brother used to just kick the shit out of me. That was our relationship. When I was even younger, I mean, seriously, he just used to, beat the crap out of me, and his friends would come and make fun of me and pick on me and all that stuff. So I didn't really hang out with him. And as he got older, he started getting into like Marilyn Manson and Skinny Puppy and 9 Inch Nails, wearing all black, really goth, and not even like goth. He was just dark. And, at a certain point, like, I don't even remember him leaving the bedroom. He honestly became just that guy that lived with us. But I don't think I said more than maybe 5 sentences in a number of years that he lived with us. It was just, I swear, he was just like this guy that lived with us that you don't talk to. Don't talk to him. Don't look at him. Just let him be. He might kick the shit out of you if you say something. So anyways, back to Metallica. So word on the street was that there were some Metallica albums that existed in that guy's room, a.k.a. my brother. And I knew at a certain point, I was like, if there's something in there, man, I got to hear it. So I remember waiting until he would leave. He had a car, so he can kind of come and go as he pleased. Again, I was in 6th grade at this point, actually 7th grade at the point now, still in 29 Palms. But I remember he left, and I was like, I'm going in. And once I passed into the confines of his room, it was just such a forbidden place that I was afraid to touch anything. And I was like, okay, where are these records? Where's the target? And I remember looking over, and he had a guitar in his room, and I was like, no, that's awesome. I want to touch it, but that's not what I came for. Keep your eyes on the prize. And I searched around, and I eventually found his his music drawer with all like the CDs and tapes and everything were. And I remember, man, it's like those movies where like you're in the temple and there's artifacts and all these precious things surrounding you. And it was like, don't touch anything because some demon might come out and just eat your face. And that's kind of how I was thinking. I was like, don't touch anything. He might know I was here. But I got to the drawer and I opened it up and there was like a holy light glowing as I saw 2 Metallica tapes. Yes, everyone, tapes, cassette tapes, they existed. And the 2 albums were Injustice for All and Master of Puppets. So it was even better that it was these tapes that of albums that I'd never heard of before. This was before the internet. I didn't have internet back then. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure in 1996 it was out there, but not to the degree that we know. But my family didn't even have it at that point. So, it was just, I knew they existed, but this now was in my grasp. So I had back then just like a little handheld cassette player that I had. And I was like, there's no way I can just pop these in and listen to him. He might come back. So then I was faced with a dilemma. At that point, I just wanted to kind of like know they were there and they existed. So I confirmed they were there. They existed. But what did I do at that point? And I figured, you know what? I can't play him here in his room. If he finds me, I'm dead. So I was like, I'm going to take them. And I didn't take the whole thing. I just took the cassettes out of the tape because I was like, he probably doesn't listen to this anymore. I mean, he's all into this other stuff, whatever. But anyways, I took them. And at this point, 29 Palms was just this small desert town. There was a large Marine Corps base, which is basically the only thing that fueled this town. But our house was actually like the last house in this establishment where from my backyard, you could look out and it was just desert. And you could follow this long road into what was known as Wonder Valley. But anyway, so I took these tapes and I just walked into the desert. And I was just walking for hours, listening for the first time to my virgin ears. The first tape I took, I remember, was Injustice for All. I didn't know anything at that point. So that was the one I picked. And I still remember listening to one for the first time at that point. So anyways, the whole point I bring up this is like that was just like cementing my love of music and metal at that point with Metallica. And I was just so obsessed with them that after I had gotten through those tapes, I was like, I want to play guitar. I knew it at that point. I saw the guitar in my brother's room and I was like, that's the next step. I've done everything I can in terms of listening to it. I want to do more. I want to play Metallica. So at that point I would sneak into his room and just kind of like pluck the guitar and just mess around with it and try to like play from just hearing the notes or whatever. And whatever. Point being, that is all how the foundation of me wanting to play guitar came. Eventually, the next year I'd moved. So I was in a military family where I would move to a new city or state or even country every year or possibly 2 years. So at this point I'd moved, and I bring up that fact for potential for a later episode where I dive into some of the song meanings or whatever. But anyways, moved to Alabama at this point. Hated it. I met a guy named Dusty McDonald who I remember I used to draw like Metallica things, and I remember he sat behind me in class and he looked over my shoulder and seen this whole Metallica cover thing I drew. And he happened to be also in love with Metallica as well. So we hit it off. Now, I remember going over at his place and he showed me that he played guitar. And man, I don't remember, my perspective probably has changed, but I remember at the time, this guy was a god on guitar. I mean, he could play all these solos and like tapping and all this stuff. And at this point, I was like just barely learning like Mary Had a Little Lamb and stuff. So I was a little bit better than that, but not good. I wasn't good by any means. So this guy, man, just blew me away. And at that point, I was like, I got to play that. I want to play solos. I want to play leads. And that's what kind of drove me more into focusing more on the lead aspect than the rhythms. Obviously, you play rhythms and all that, but I knew I wanted to play solos. So again, because I moved around so much, after 8th grade in Alabama, 1 year there, I moved to back to San Diego, actually. And again, we always moved in the summer. So I would get to this new city. I wouldn't know anybody. And because it's summer, school wasn't in. I didn't know anything, so all I really had to do was just hang out by myself. And at this point, because I played guitar, I would just sit in my room and for hours I would just play guitar because I literally had nothing else to do. I had no one to hang out with other than my brothers, which again, one of which I barely said anything to. But anyways, yeah, I just sat in my room and played guitar over and over, hours and hours. And it was 99% Metallica that I would play. I mean, I would just go through their entire catalog playing everything. But yeah, so that was the foundation of me playing guitar. And obviously, as I grew older and kind of, the whole story with Sever, I never stopped playing. I just kept, doing more and more. So that's kind of the, how things came to be for me playing guitar. Vocals is a much different story, drastically different story. So in 2001, so this is 1 year after I moved to San Diego. So now I spent 1 year in San Diego, and then I moved to South Carolina in 2001. Again, didn't have any friends, didn't know anything, so I just sat in my room and played guitar. But eventually, once school started up, I did end up meeting some people. And I had my best friend at the time, Joe Petrucci. We always used to hang out, and he actually played bass. And he was kind of in a similar boat where we weren't great. But we played, and eventually, it was nothing serious. We just kind of messed around, played covers and stuff, and messed around with some of our own material. And we go, you know what, why don't we try to find somebody else to play? So we found this guy named Bobby Arbello. And he was more of like a Dave Matthews Band kind of guy. He had, great stick control, but wasn't really much the metal player. But, beggars can't be choosers. So it was 10th grade, high school. You kind of work with what you got. And he was a cool guy. So we asked him, and he just wanted to play. He was kind of the same deal. Like, I just want to play music. Yeah, I'll come over. So we had the three of us, me on guitar, Joe on bass, and Bobby on drums. And it was the same thing as Sever, right? Deja vu in reverse. This is the origins, actually, was we need a singer. So, Bobby, you want to sing? And, of course, his answer was, no, I play drums. I'm not going to sing. And Joe didn't want to sing, and I didn't want to sing. So it was just kind of like this, we don't want to find another guy, whatever. But at that time, I've had this approach. Again, I had moved around a whole bunch. I wouldn't say I was depressed, but I was definitely kind of like withdrawn a little bit. And I was just tired of the whole moving thing and having to start over and all this stuff. And every time, I'm a pretty reserved person, pretty shy. It was always a challenge, like meeting friends and everything. And it became worse as older I got just because I, just kept withdrawing or whatever. But so I had this approach at that year. I think it was like a turning point for me where I just got fed up with that kind of being too shy and too reserved to do stuff. That I had my life approach was fuck it, where I would come up to something and, normally I would kind of be like, no, I don't want to do it. Or I'd kind of like, whatever, find excuses. But I would say, you know what, fuck it, I'll do it. So, after we kind of went back and forth about not wanting to sing, I just did that. I was like, fuck it, I'll be the singer. I'll do it. And for no reason other than that, I really hadn't even thought through what I was agreeing to. It was just a matter of, I'm going to do it. I don't care. So I decided to sing. So at that point, I had the origins of the Fostex. If you guys paid attention to episode 1, the Fostex, I got it for Christmas in 2001. I ended up recording the first song that I'd ever written with vocals. And it wasn't just like this 3-minute radio-friendly song or, some attempt at it, right? You would think someone's first song is going to be this just like, 2-minute combination of a whole bunch of stuff. No, my first song was a 12-minute epic with pianos and bass solos and everything I could imagine that I was just wrote into this song. And at the time, dude, I was obsessed with it. I loved it. I was just so into writing my first epic song. And eventually this song, the main riff, I pulled it out of this song and I put it into the Neologist song, Words Cannot Describe. So the main clean riff, and I tweaked a little bit, but the main clean riff in Words Cannot Describe was the main riff from this song, Dark Days. I don't know if I said the title yet, but and then also the bass solo in Dark Days, I had pulled out and put into the March of Sagittarius. March of Sagittarius was actually meant to be this journey, and it was kind of reflective of, a whole bunch of things in my life and the musical aspect, where I had kind of pulled a couple of different things and, put it into this. So one of which was this bass solo that I had from the first song I ever wrote. So anyways, here's a clip of Dark Days, my first ever song. So that is where it all began, listening to little me. But yeah, so we had that track that obviously that was live drums. We had Bobby on and my buddy Joe on bass. So we had all that. There's a couple more tracks that we had, but we also played a ton of Metallica. So shortly thereafter, I think it was probably a couple months that we had been playing together, and our school ended up having a battle of the bands, and we were like, let's do it again. Fuck it, let's play it, and we don't care. So, the day of the Battle of the Bands, my buddy Joe and I just got hammered and showed up to this thing, which was a great idea. I mean, why not, right? Get hammered and go to your school. But anyways, so we did. I think that was kind of just give me the nerves playing in front of all these people. Because again, man, I was pretty reserved and shy. I still, thinking back to that point, I'm surprised that I actually pulled it together to do this. But we went out there, we played the whole show. And after the show, I remember my girlfriend at the time came up to me and said, I'll never forget this. She said, "You sounded flat." And it just crushed me. It just crushed me, man. I was feeling so good about the show because I didn't know what we sounded like on the outside. In my head, I was just, playing this like huge arena of people. In reality, it was just this school in the gymnasium, which I still remember there was a pretty good amount of people. I mean, probably, I don't know, like 50 to 60 people, which is probably bigger than most of the Sever shows we played. So I felt good, but yeah, her saying that, I was just like, it just crushed me, man. That was the first like gut punch to me being a singer. Because again, man, I was shy and self-conscious and all this stuff. And for her to say that, it was just, ouch, man, that hurt. And then the next day or next couple of days, I might have been on a Friday. So maybe it was like Monday. We were in school and they used to have TVs and they would play like the morning announcements and everything. And they played a clip of the talent show over the school TV. And it was us playing Fade to Black from Metallica. And it sounded horrible. Horrible. It was horrible, man. I don't even know. And I don't know if maybe it was just like worse in my head where I was just like, self-destructing myself for what it sounded like, or if it really did sound that bad, but I'm pretty sure it sounded that bad. So that was number 2. That was the follow-up gut punch of my self-esteem as a vocalist was just devastated. But I didn't have enough, apparently, because shortly thereafter, I'd already, I was the singer at this point, even though my self-esteem of being a vocalist was pretty shot at that point. We played another show. We actually ended up going to the Marine Corps Enlisted Club on bass because we were, Joe and I were from military families, so we can get on bass. And they were having a talent show. And, I didn't have enough from playing in front of my peers at high school. Now let me go play in front of some Marines because that's going to end well. Enlisted Marines, nonetheless. So we go up on stage and we play one song and, whatever, the first song goes as expected, whatever. And we're done playing. And I don't know why. I mean, we did this to ourselves, but for some reason we thought it would be a good idea to play a second song. Which at a talent show, you go up, you do your thing, and you get the hell off, and you let the next person come on. But apparently we thought, let's play a second song. They didn't get enough of this delicious sound that we're throwing at their eardrums. Let's do a second one. And almost instantly, a Marine yells, I don't remember if there was, if you swore at us or what, but it was basically, get off the stage. This isn't your show, and you suck. And which is totally valid, man. I mean, I would probably say the same thing if this horrible sounding high school band was up there and getting ready to play another track. So he said that, but at the time, that just crushed me because it seemed like just a personal attack on me as the front man. That's how I kind of took it anyways, was like, he was saying it to me, like, get off the stage. So after those 3 like events in like back to back to back, I had absolutely zero vocal confidence. I knew that I'm a guitar player. F this vocal stuff. It just wasn't working. Every show we played was just bad feedback. You suck. You're flat. Even our band practice, I remember we played in my garage and we got complaints from people nearby, which completely makes sense because we're probably loud as hell. But that was just another thing. Everything we played ended in poor results, and I took most of it personally. I don't know if it was all in my head. It very well probably was because I was all self-conscious, but so after that, I still sang on my songs because, at that point it was like, okay, I can still put vocals to my songs and all that, but I was just so self-conscious that I never let anyone hear me sing, basically at that point, until after it was recorded and I listened to it a million times and just completely vet it out and say, how does this sound? Does it sound good? Oh, that sounded a little off. I don't want anyone to hear this, blah, blah, blah. And I'm actually still like that to this day, to some capacity. I mean, back then it was like obsessive compulsive. But to this day, fun fact, I still, like, if I record something, I don't want people to hear me until after I have a chance to listen to it and kind of put it through my stamp of approval and then put it out there. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the take is good. If you guys have heard some of the live vocal recordings I've done on our YouTube channel for like, Disharmonia Mundi, and I think I did a Scar Symmetry song and some other ones. They're not necessarily good. And a lot of times I go through and like, I kind of do it like improv where I don't even necessarily know the lyrics and I'm trying to like look at them on my phone. So to be clear, my compulsive nature of listening to the music isn't necessarily perfection based. It's just a matter of, I do it, let me hear it, and let me kind of see what people are going to hear first. So I had actually done far more vocal covers than I've posted on the YouTube channel. And one of which that I'm going to play here is a clip from Gravitational Lensing from Solution 45 that I had done that didn't make the cut, didn't make it onto the YouTube channel. And this was from 2013 or so. So as we'll talk about here soon, it's still pretty early in my kind of screaming evolution. But anyways, this is, again, a clip from Gravitational Lensing from Solution 45.
What goes on forever beyond perspectives lost, kaleidoscope vision, retro perspective display. When I took blind sight, falls it into my head. Now's the only time hiding behind a lie. All I know, I justify inside these hours all alone. For I am in denial, though never again will I direct my shields against another, but turn it on myself. Whoa!
So jumping back to, again, my kind of vocal evolution, after I moved away from South Carolina, so where that band was, Harsh Reality. I don't know if I said the name, but yeah, the band was Harsh Reality. I moved to Virginia at that point. It still carried through with me. Anytime I recorded something, I had to listen first, and I didn't want anyone to hear me. That it actually got to the point where it was this way from the beginning, really, but I would always wait until like everyone left the house, and I would run to the window and I would watch them leave. And then as soon as they pulled out of the driveway, I'd run back, I'd get my Fostex, right? the sweet Fostex, grab that, get everything set up, go into my closet, did the closet recordings, because we heard from episode 1 how well that turns out. I would sing a couple lines, and then I would go out and make sure no one heard me. Did anyone come home? And I would do that, and I would repeatedly do that until the song was recorded. I mean, it was insanity. So that's how I did vocals. So I kind of made a comment in episode 1 too when I showed the Sever guys my song "Color of Beauty" and how like subdued my clean vocals were. And I had made the comment of like, I don't want anyone to hear me. That's kind of like the tone that they had was, I'm singing, but don't hear me. And that's why I had that kind of like, I literally did not want anyone to hear me. So I would be like talking, or not talking, but I'd be singing in this just, you weren't belting it, man. If you want to be a vocalist, you gotta scream it out there. And I never did that. But I got a little bit better. So in Virginia in high school, I was like, you know what? I'm going to do vocals while people are home. Sounds brave, right? How just brave of me to do that. So here's what I did. This is a fun story. This is a true story, and it's just absolutely ridiculous. But okay, so someone was home. I can't remember who it was. It was maybe my mom or brothers or something like that. So rather than like waiting, I wanted to get this song out. I think I was doing a cover to Where the Wild Things Are, which, you know what, if I can find that, I'll put that in here, but I'm not sure I'll be able to find it. But anyways, I remember it was Where the Wild Things Are by Metallica. And I was like, I just wanted to do it. People are home. They're not going anywhere. So I was like, I'm going to do it while they're home. So closed my door, and I draped my comforter down, blocking kind of the access to under my bed. And I crawled under the bed, and I had this like pile of my pillows, and I just smashed my face into the pillow with the microphone, and I sang the song, just completely can't even breathe into this thing, which, I mean, you can imagine that this was probably top tier quality of me just singing into my pillows under the bed. So I have no like breath control. The ground is pressing on my stomach. So clearly perfect form. And I sang this song, and I'm going to try to find it. I don't know if I can. So if I don't plug it, that's why. But anyways, just absolutely, I mean, that was horrible, right? That's where I was at this point. But can't believe it didn't sound good, right? You would be hard to believe that it didn't turn out good. But so anyways, fast forward to 2009, it was back to, now I was singing for someone other than myself. Because Devin was now part of this thing. I couldn't just stick myself in a closet and record vocals and put it to a song and just listen for myself. No one else hears it. So now I was like, I got to practice. I got to do something. But again, my vocal confidence was still just nowhere to be found. So there's actually a funny story, which I don't think Devin knows this story. So if you're listening, Devin, this is for you. So when we created the Neologist, I remember Devin came up, and he was at that apartment, if you remember from the first episode, the slanted apartment with cross-eyed Geraldine downstairs, making some candles. And but anyways, he came over to my apartment, and we're like, let's do some recording. And for whatever reason, we were going to get some vocal recording going. And I was like, oh man, like I don't want to fucking sing in front of him. So I was like, well, what can I do here? I have not only the anxiety of singing directly in front of Devin, who's in front of me, but also my neighbors might hear me. Remember? So what I did was I was poor as hell at this point. I just graduated or whatever. That my bed wasn't a bed. It was actually one of those tri-fold like cushions that would it would fold into three pieces, and you could lay it out and it would be like a bed. So I took that, and I was telling him, and I came up with this great excuse for why I was doing this was I was going to come up with like an improv vocal booth, well treated, top premium quality materials with my tri-folded cushion. So I created this little tent kind of thing with the tri-fold cushions, and I put some pillows up, and I think I draped, if I'm not mistaken, like a blanket or something over it. But either way, I created this tiny little box of cushions that I crawled into, and I was selling it as this was to help treat the vocals, when in reality it was how do I disappear while I record these vocals so he doesn't see or hear me. And so he was in control of the Fostex to hit the record button while I'm in there. And keep in mind, at the time too, I didn't know what the hell I was doing for screaming. So I was doing my whispery screams and my hope nobody hears me singing clean vocals inside this little cushion fort that I created. And of course, it didn't sound good. I don't know what his impressions were. I can't remember if he clearly addressed it and called me out for my bullshit, or if he even didn't say anything, but internally was like, yeah, James is full of shit. He clearly doesn't want to sing. I don't know. I'm curious what Devin's thoughts were. But anyways, so that was the initial kind of thing of where that started. So the first couple of tracks that I did, again, if you heard Color of Beauty, man, I didn't know what I was doing, both in a scream and singing capacity. And that's kind of how the first couple of Neologist tracks were. So I'm going to show you this. I found some tracks that were actually on the previous Neologist YouTube channel that is, dead, basically, but they were still out there. But I had actually found a track, The Fall of an Empire, which ended up on our Promise of Eternal Separation album. And also on the Are We Not Drawn Onward to New Era disc 1, where I kind of re-recorded some of the older tracks. So this was the original version with my fantastic vocals on it that we released. So check it out. So again, not great, not even good, actually. I'll just, call it what it is. It was bad. It was very bad. But that's the beginning of the Neologist, where I was taking over his vocals. That's kind of where I was. And a lot of that, well, I shouldn't say a lot of that, but some of that is just, I didn't know what the hell I was doing in recording either. Like the mixing was just atrocious. So in everything we talk about, obviously, hopefully I've gotten better at recording, mixing, and mastering stuff, but that was where I started with that. So anyway, so at this point, 2009, I got a real job as an engineer, and I actually lived over an hour away from my job. So I was driving over an hour to and from. And I remember every day I would practice my screaming and singing in my car as I drove, day in and day out. And I remember it hurt, and I was doing it wrong, and I just knew, like, I would scream a little bit. I was like, man, that hurts. I'll try singing, blah, blah, blah. But there was this one time I remember, after practicing and practicing and practicing, that I finally did it, and it didn't hurt. And it sounded kind of like a scream. And I was just like so blown away. I was pumped, but I got to work. I'm kind of like, yes, man, I think I finally kind of found what all these people are talking about when they do the screams or whatever. And then on the drive home, I tried it, and it hurt, and I couldn't think about what I was doing. And I kind of equate it to like playing a sport, or like golf or something, right? You think you just go up and you smack the ball, but you're thinking about so many things, like your knee position, your wrist, your follow through, or your eyes on the ball, and how far back you're bringing your shoulders. And you're trying to like think about all these things when you're swinging, that if you're not focusing on one thing, you just shank the ball, and you don't hit it right. And that's kind of how it was for me. Is like I was trying to think about so many things, about like diaphragm support and where I'm focusing on, the force and all this, and I just couldn't get it right. But having that one time that it actually hit definitely made me realize, like, I could do it. I can find it again. I just have to keep practicing. So a little time went by, and then I remember I was doing one of my drives. I was driving to work, and I was listening to Disharmonia Mundi's new album, Isolation Game. And I was singing and screaming along with it. And I found the spot again. I found the technique again, where I was doing it and it didn't hurt. And I was like, I think that kind of sounds like a scream. And this time I was kind of like focused on what I was doing, and I had more time. I think I was further away from the office, so I had more time to kind of hone in on that. And it still took a lot, man. It's like even to this day when I scream, I'm still trying to focus on the right technique, because it's easy to get sloppy and just kind of do it and whatever. So back then, though, it was like hyper focus on what I was doing. But anyway, so I finally, at that point, I think I got it. And then day in, day out after that, I just continued focusing on that. So that was back in 2010, I think it was. So that was right around the time, right? It might have been 2009, actually. I think it was 2009. So I think that was around the time that 26 Letters came out, is like right when I was first starting to actually scream, and it was still in that kind of like weird, I didn't know how to like really have any dynamic to my voice. It was just doing what I could and getting it out. And the clean vocals on that album were still pretty subdued, because I was still in an apartment at that time. So I was still singing in a closet. Actually, fun fact, and we'll talk about it when I dive into the albums, but every album up to well, I shouldn't say every album. So basically 26 Letters of the Universe and Promise of Eternal Separation. Both albums were recorded vocally in a closet with clothes. And I'm not talking about like a sound treated closet. I'm talking like just take a closet at home that has all your clothes and shirts in it and just step into it with a microphone and sing. And actually, if you check out my YouTube channel, my Clayman41 YouTube, I have a number of vocal covers. I think I did like Perdition Hayes from Disharmonia, did Elegia from Elvati, I think one from All That Remains, Bullet Ride from In Flames. I did that. All of those were in my closet in this apartment, and I had like a foam cushion up and everything. But yeah, you can kind of see what my vocal studio looked like back at that time. So yeah, they were done in that fashion. But anyways, so that's really the evolution of how I came to be. But really, at that point, once I kind of got the technique down and I was having fun with the Neologist, it was new, it was my music, and having Devin, who's, same mentality as I was, like we were 100% on the same page, just, fuck around, have fun, do what we love. It took a lot of the burden off of like feeling like I had to perform for somebody. So I just kept expanding on that, trying new things, learning new things. Eventually I did move into a house and I actually made a vocal booth. So you get to see a lot of the videos that I've posted are from my kind of vocal booth that I've done. A little bit better than a closet. But the big thing was that in my house, like I didn't feel pressured that people were going to hear me, like my upstairs neighbors or anyone else. So, the first album, Coming Full Circle, was the first one where I was able to like just let it out, like I was in my car, and not hold back anything. And I think at that point I was able to kind of see how my voice sounded and try new things. So I'm going to leave you. That was, again, that's kind of where the evolution started and ended. But I'm going to leave you with a clip of my favorite chorus that I've written to date vocally, which is Dark Horizons. And the reason I like this one so much was, traditionally when I do clean vocal choruses, I have the lead vocal and then I'll have a low harmony and a high harmony that are, traditionally an octave or maybe I'd experiment with like a perfect fifth or some variation of a octave to harmonize with, and it would just kind of maintain the same pattern and just follow it along. That's traditionally how I've done clean vocals, just to give it a little bit more depth and give me some more things to experiment with and more space or whatever. But for whatever reason, just the way that the vocals in Dark Horizons worked with the music, and I actually created, it was 3 different vocal parts. But rather than sticking to the exact same melodies and following all the same patterns, the vocals kind of danced around. I had my low harmony that kind of, rather than going down with the lead vocal, it went up and into a different harmony. And there's some parts at the end where like the highs would actually hold the note while the lows and the lead vocal would kind of carry in a different melody. So it was much more experimental than a lot of the stuff I had done. And I still find this to be one of my favorite choruses. So I'm going to actually show you vocals only, kind of soloed, and then kind of how that fit into the song Dark Horizons. All right, well, thanks for joining me, everyone, and hope to see you guys on future episodes. Enjoy.
Standing up in the arms of the night, holding on to the rain, stay below the water's gaze. I feel the stars tonight, but the void feels alone, fading away, but the darkness so cold. I feel the stars tonight. Standing up in the arms